My name is Tony Lee Glenn, and I come from a place called Little Switzerland, which is middle ways between Asheville and Boone, if you're riding on the Parkway. It's a very musically rich area where I grew up. A lot of art in the area, a lot of cultural diversity, and it was just a very interesting place to grow up. You heard a lot of different kinds of music, not just bluegrass and gospel and country, which people think when they think of the high Appalachian Mountains, but a lot of rock and blues, R&B. And so over the years, I've played in a lot of different bands. I've been a musician since I was 17 years old. I guess before I got into graphics or anything else, my love, my passion was music. And the graphics sort of evolved out of my background as a communicator. My college was Mars Hill College up near Asheville. I was an English and communications major, graduated magna cum laude, which, you know, was pretty nice. It's a very prestigious type school as far as English goes. And did my internship in television for Channel 13, which is an award-winning sort of TV station in Asheville, North Carolina. I worked in promotions, and so I wrote little commercials, little ads, voiceovers and things like that, and got interested then in doing video back in the mid-'80s. As far as career goes, one thing or another led me sort of on the pathway to being a graphic designer, and started out doing print design back in the early 1990s. And years of that led to going into web development when the web started to kick in. So I started learning how to lay out websites and became responsible for doing a lot of different websites, the design and everything for that. And of course, video, there was a video element that always, I think, was kind of at the root of what was going to make the web special, and everybody knew that. At first, the web couldn't deliver video very well, but as the years went on, it progressed more and more and more. In probably the late 90s, I guess about 1997, I started doing nonlinear digital video editing using Adobe Creative Suite, Premiere Pro, After Effects, and Sound Booth, Audition. Although I've used the Apple stuff as well. I've used some Final Cut, iMovie, and things like that. So over the years, I've done a sort of an equal amount of video editing, print design, writing, because my background is in English and communications, and then I've done a lot of video and audio type things. So kind of wrap it up together, I'm sort of a unique graphic design professional. I've worked mostly in travel, I've worked a lot of freelance work, I've worked in medical, and also done a lot of concerts, music, interviews, nonprofit type things. Thousands of different videos I've produced over the year. Now I work mostly in high definition video. Still do a lot of website design for the hospital system I work for. I maintain and manage over 25 websites. Still do a good bit of print design on the side. But video, I'd say now, is my number one way of communicating. There's been so many varied projects I've worked on over the years. I've done live concerts with as many as 14 cameras and then mixed them in post later. I did not have the ability at that point to pull together a large mixer where I could do a whole lot of video sources, but I've worked for some very popular acts. Zoso is one that I've worked with a lot, done a lot of 4-camera work for them. So live music is one of the things. A lot of interviews. I've interviewed so many people, particularly in medicine, doctors, medical people who are performing new procedures, introducing new technology. And so a lot of what I've done professionally has been that. I've worked for nonprofits, fundraising projects, television commercials, theater ad spots, and I've done a lot of blue screen, green screen keying, multi-layered type things with special effects like in Adobe After Effects. I've done sporting events, I've done weddings. Gee whiz, it's just almost anything that I've done that can be done commercially, video, and freelance, I've done it. Yeah, I was hired years ago to go to Ireland and Scotland and shoot some video of golfers. And so I did a wonderful tour of Ireland and Scotland around the coasts, going to these beautiful golf links, golf courses there. You'll see Tralee and Ballybunion and Prestwick and, of course, St. Andrews, Kingsbarns, Turnberry, Carnoustie. What a fantastic thing that was to go follow some golfers around, some American golfers, and show how they enjoy those places. That's probably the best gig I ever had from a video point of view.
Do you have experience doing documentary work?
Yeah, documentaries. Well, we've done a lot of little things, local things for travel and tourism here in our area, but probably the biggest thing I've ever worked on was for PBS National out of Chicago. And I did a lot of B-roll footage for a documentary called The Aging of America with Paul Zahn. And it was on, I think, in 2009 or early part of 2010. And so if you get a hold of that, that has a whole lot of the B-roll footage of me shooting surgeries, various shots around hospitals, and people being treated by medical professionals. Well, the gear that I use now is all high definition stuff. Here at the hospital, we started doing HD before other people on the web started doing HD, and we kind of foresaw the fact that it's going to go that way. I used, in the early days, Sony HDR FX1s, which are very nice Sony camera. And then also HDR FX7s, which is kind of came after that. It's sort of a cheaper camera, but still very good. Now I use mostly Canon gear, high definition, that does 30p, 30 frames progressive. That's what we prefer. And of course, we use 24p if we want something that looks more cinematic, or 60 interlaced if we want something that handles speed a little bit better. I use Adobe Premiere to edit. I use things like Digital Juice, backgrounds, and soundtracks and things to create sound beds. Magic Bullet Looks, which really adds a film sheen to our video to keep it from looking just so pristine, since it is all digital video and all done tapeless now. It's the main thing I like, really, going to the Canon formats rather than the Sonys. Is Canon went pretty quickly to little SD cards for your media rather than doing everything on tape, which speeds up the process a lot. We can get a lot of video editing done fast. Long before I got involved in graphics, and before I got involved in doing page layouts and things, I was a sound engineer. When I started in music, I took an interest early on in like church music. So I learned how to run the mixing boards, learned how to set up mics, learned what the differences between condenser mics and dynamic mics were, what the mics of choice were for different kinds of instruments and vocals. And I learned how to run sound for bands, and how to get really high quality recordings, to use compression and use it wisely, and effects and not overdo it, and how to EQ things very subtly so that the sound is more from the musician and more pure. The thing I really like a lot about Premiere is the fact you can do 4 channels of video, and you can synchronize those videos, and you can come at the various different angles just like you would, like you see on a television show. Austin City Limits is one of my favorite television shows, and so when I'm out doing live music, I try to sort of get that sort of look that really respects the music, that respects the musicians, that's not out looking a whole lot of stuff in the crowd, but really concentrating on what's happening musically and what the performers are getting into, the emotion of it and the technical performance of it. So I really love to go shoot music. Music's my favorite thing to shoot. If I could shoot music all the time, that is what would be heaven for me in this world as far as video goes. Well, the Orange Peel in Nashville is one of the best sort of live music venues in the Southeast now. And so Zoso became friends with those guys who were like the nation's premier Led Zeppelin cover band act, and sort of kind of got my feet wet doing it with them. Then I've worked with a lot of other regional acts, Shane Pruitt Band. So I've done Colonel Bruce Hampton. I've done some things over at Dinah Wortham Theater. But then, of course, we went to Greensboro and did a 14 camera shoot with the Newsboys. The Newsboys, I actually did a little fan video for them, and they were very impressed with it, and they asked me to come by. And we put together a team, went to Greensboro and shot 14 cameras in HD, and did some of the best live video they didn't have to pay for that has ever been out there. And some of it's on the internet now, though I'm being kind of careful with that, trying to wade the waters and see what could happen with that video in the future. Great to work with those large acts, though. When I think back at my era of music, and it continues on to this day, is of course the classic rock. Classic rock's never died, and so the guitarists that meant a lot to me as I watched them and listened to them growing up were the guys in Leonard Skinner, because I'm from the South. People like Gary Rosington, people like Gary Richrath from REO Speedwagon, Tom Scholes from Boston. I love that Boston sound. I love Alex Lifeson from Rush. Is one of my favorite guitar players, and he's a guy that plays a lot of Gibsons. My favorite guitar, my dream guitar always has been a Gibson ES335, and I went and saw a Rush concert, and Alex has made that thing sound so great. Toy Caldwell from the Marshall Tucker Band. And I could go on with Slash from Guns N' Roses, the guys from the Allman Brothers, Dickie Betts and Dwayne Allman, and Randy Rhoads from Ozzy. I mean, all of those different bands, those kind of people got into my head and into my music. But yeah, B.B. King, blues. Blues still is probably the thing I like to play the most. It's just I enjoy. It's a very good free-form, emotional kind of music. I played with probably a dozen different bands, dance bands back in college, and then of course blues, R&B. I've played in country bands. I've done a lot of dinner type music actually, where fingerpick, acoustic type music and things like that. Gibson guitar. Wow. You know, the thing about the opportunity to work for a place like Gibson that means a lot to me is it's a product I believe in. I mean, I believe in the work that I do here now. It's just, given the dream type job, the dream type product to promote, I don't usually think of healthcare as being that. I try to put all my energy and all my heart into anything I do, but Gibson is just such a storied, awesome, iconic company. When it comes to American guitar playing, Gibson is, right up there at the very top, if probably not the top. It's like the Harley Davidson of guitars. It's the American icon. You talk about Fender, you talk about Gibson, you talk about Martin if you're into acoustic guitar. But for me, the sound that's always kind of turned my crank was a Gibson, really cranked up loud. People like Peter Frampton playing and stuff. It's the guitar I always wanted to own, and still to this day would just love to have a wall full of them.